My name is Karen King-Aribisala, and this is Karen's Kingdom, where you can hear readings from my own work and from the works of writers which have had some impact on my life and on my own writings. Today I'm going to read a story which has been published. It's taken from a short story collection entitled Latinized Black. And it's called The Nature of Tragedy. This is an excerpt from it, not the whole story. Big meeting called for today, with both house mistresses and matron and every single girl directed to be in attendance. It was taking place in the central common room of St. Hilda's house, and I suspected that the reason for the meeting was because Mrs. Perkins suddenly had a face. Mrs. Perkins is a maid, one of the domestic staff, as we're told we should call them, and I hadn't noticed she'd got a face until her cheeks were bruised and swollen. One of her eyes had black and purple smudges, rounded as if she'd hurriedly applied the wrong sort of makeup or someone had done it for her. And she was continually sniffling from a nose which seemed smashed in. And whenever she came up from the kitchens below, she'd come at the wrong time, when she wasn't supposed to be there, and she'd be sniffling with the nose set in that face. If you attempted to speak to her, she would walk away and return to the kitchen. Sarah Ponsonby said that she tried to complain about the possibility of Mrs. Perkins' snot getting into our food, and had waited outside that awful kitchen cave, waited outside the tradesman door for Mrs. Perkins, so she could do her complaining about the snot possibilities. And Sarah Ponsonby said that after she complained, Mrs. Perkins wouldn't even give her the time of day. Mrs. Perkins really was acting strangely. And somehow I guessed that the big meeting today would be about her face. The common room of St. Hilda's house wasn't expecting so many girls, plus the mistresses and matron, to be in it at the same time. So it was fairly heaving with excitement when Miss Gramley came in with matron and Miss Twist. There was a sudden hush, like when the curtain is about to go up before a play begins, any entertainment, but especially when it's going to be tragedy. Miss Gramley's eyes roamed round the room, and matron decided to sit on a chair that Suey brought for her. The rest of us, with the exception of the house mistresses, of course, were sitting on the carpet, since most of the chairs and tables had been removed to make more room. There's usually a kind of build-up to these affairs, I've noticed. Miss Gramley began by talking about a certain window episode. She said, just because no one was disciplined, when it was reported that the girls in dormitory F drew the curtains of their windows after the lights out bell and waved at the village boys, who, I'm told, were laughing raucously, having frequented a pub in the village, it appears that the discipline of St. Hilda's house has taken a turn for the worse. It has been going downhill. I lived in dormitory F, wouldn't you know? Not only did you disobey school rules, but since it was night time when this activity was engaged in, the girls in the said dormitory would have had to have been clad in their night garments, with all of the associated suggestions of the salacious. Perhaps you girls are unaware of the fact that there are certain women of a certain ilk, a certain extraction who draw their curtains open at night to look at men. Ladies certainly do not. Miss Twist and matron were now staring at the carpet with such concentration that I wondered if I'd gotten it wrong. Perhaps I'd been so upset by the state of Mrs. Perkins' face that I hadn't been able to think of much else. Like most of the girls, I'd been speculating. What could have happened? Apparently, a prefect had questioned the mistresses on this very issue of Mrs. Perkins' face, and the mistresses were mum. It was a secret. So we'd gotten Mildred to threaten Alice to bring up the subject during dining room conversation and sort of confront the Mrs. Perkins' face problem and get the mistresses to face up to it openly. This confrontation took place after Alice had made a few comments about the weather, of course, and Alice, knowing what Mildred's hockey stick could do, primed herself and said, Miss Gramley, I was wondering why Mrs. Perkins' face is like that, swollen, and she's got a black eye, and also her nose is broken. Alice trailed off nervously. She knew full well that we weren't allowed to, as Miss Gramley was always saying, fraternize with the domestic staff. Gramley was livid but ignored her, ignored our curiosity, and simply expanded on Alice's earlier remarks about the weather. Nothing was said about Mrs. Perkins and her face. Thank you for listening. My name is Karen King-Aribisala, and that was an excerpt from a story entitled The Nature of Tragedy. This is Karen's Kingdom. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.